What's going on, guys? What's going on? I'm Jaye the Black. Salute to everybody that's tuning in. Make sure you like this video and share it, because I'm going to talk about Bomani Jones. Apparently, he's expected to leave the network after his contract expires in March, and I believe it'll be March of next year, which is a little less than 6 months away. So it's not a short amount of time, but it's not a long amount of time either. And until then, he's going to still be on Around the Horn, which is actually, out of all the shows on ESPN, it's probably a show that I would still watch after all these years, because the show has been consistently what it is. They've had different people on there, different personalities, but I like Around the Horn. And his podcast will be still a part of ESPN. Let me say this about Bomani Jones. Bomani Jones had a lot of potential. Bomani Jones had a lot of potential as a host, a personality on ESPN. That's why they brought him in. They could see that. The guy does have a voice, I would say, for radio, but it also could translate to TV as well. You know, the guy is a good speaker, right? But the guy is one of these super woke, always taking the popular opinion on Twitter. Years ago, I believe I followed him on Twitter, but he has become completely insufferable. And he's one of these people that follows whatever narrative is going to get them likes and shares on social media. And I think ESPN has had enough of that. And they could keep Bomani Jones around, but they realize that it just isn't worth it. The guy is not bringing very much to the network. I mean, when you make yourself such an unlikable person on social media, do you really think that's going to translate to viewers? They recently canceled a show he was a part of. And what's interesting is that he actually re-signed with ESPN last year. Bomani Jones re-signed a contract with ESPN last year, him and Pablo Torre. By the way, Pablo Torre is still going to be a part of the network, and they're going to put him on a show with someone else. They value Pablo Torre more than they did him, even after they canceled their show. Now, people are saying that it's because Bomani Jones doesn't want to resign. I mean, I believe he has some options, but I mean, he wasn't able to be a draw for ESPN. How is he going to be a draw for anybody else? But let's dive into this article from Awful Announcing. It says, Bomani Jones' time at ESPN is reportedly moving towards its end. Andrew Marchand of the New York Post reports in his weekly Sports Clicker newsletter that Jones is not expected to renew his contract with the network when it expires in March. Though an official decision has not been made, ESPN whittled down the properties on which Jones appears makes that conclusion likely, because he's not a draw, people. He's not a draw. Nobody wants to see this guy on TV. Podcast is cool. The podcast probably does numbers. He has a voice for podcasting, a voice for radio. He does. He's insightful. He is witty. But I guess, to them, there's really no place to put him. And I'm sure that they would like to have him around. But I think Bomani Jones has realized that, ESPN is doing some changes, and the network isn't as big as it once was. And they're doing a lot of cost cutting. And if they feel like that you're not a draw on that network, they're going to get rid of you, i.e. Katie Nolan. You got all these people complaining about Katie Nolan, but they get rid of Bomani. And people are going to bring up all these different, well, maybe it's about race. They still have a lot of melanated people employed there. As Marchand points out, if ESPN wanted to stay in the Bomani Jones business, highly questionable, would probably have remained on air with him hosting the show. But again, people, they canceled it because it wasn't a draw. That's why. Let's see. The show was canceled and revamped into a new program titled Debatable, which premieres today on the network's digital channels, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the ESPN app. So they fully embrace social media. Jones being a part of the Debatable crew seemed like a natural move, yet in ESPN's promotional video for the new show, he's notably absent among your favorite talking heads, including Mina Kimes, I say her name, L. Duncan, Mike Golick Jr., and Pablo Torre that will participate. And again, these are the two people that they re-signed. One person is going to be gone in March, and the other person will still have a job. I would assume, if Debatable works out. They didn't even put him on that show. That lets you know how they feel about Bomani Jones and whether he can make the money and draw viewers to the show. And they don't feel like he can do that. The guy might be very unlikable behind the scenes. And you know what's crazy? There's a situation that happened in 2018. And I have to bring this up because I can't talk about Bomani Jones without. He was accused of staring at this female here, Adrian Lawrence, staring at her, which made her uncomfortable, and she accused him of some type of harassment. And there were people who pretty much been kicked off the network because of the things that she has said and the accusations she has made about them. And Bomani Jones is one of those people. Even though, listen, I'm not here to drag this guy's name through the mud, but this is all documented. This is all public information. And what I'm saying is, I believe ever since then, ESPN's view of Bomani Jones has not been very high. Look at what they do. Look at what they've done with Bomani Jones over the last couple of years. They've basically made him the third wheel of a show, a second wheel. He's never been able to be the guy, even though he has the potential to be the guy. Bomani Jones has had a lot of potential, but the network don't believe that. And I think this incident may have played a part into how they view him pretty much long term. As you can see, this is the promotional tweet here for Debatable. They already have a Twitter page for it. According to Marshawn, Jones will still appear as a panelist on Around the Horn and distribute his podcast, The Right Time Bomani Jones, through ESPN unless he agrees to a new contract. However, those roles may only apply until his contract expires. When they lessen your role, they're not going to keep you. Jones once looked like a rising star at ESPN, especially after he and Torre got their own show, High Noon. I remember that show, and that show, High Noon, didn't last very long. They put the black guy and the Asian guy together in 2018. What the network's long-term ambitions for the show and its hosts aren't known, but Tony Kornheiser once publicly said that he believed Jones and Torre would be the natural successors to him and Michael Wilbon for Party Interruption, but that never occurred. Obviously, Kornheiser is not in charge of programming, nor did his prediction boost ratings. Whether it was the airtime debuting at noon Eastern time before being moved to 4 p.m., the glut of debate-focused daytime programming, or an attempt to be more nuanced and insightful with their discussions rather than shouting hot takes at each other, High Noon didn't engage viewers and was canceled less than 2 years later. Both Jones and Torre later agreed to new contracts with ESPN. If Jones leaves ESPN, the question is where he might land next. He has a role as commentator and roundtable contributor with the HBO's Back on the Record with Bob Costas, but that's a monthly programming airing 3 episodes since its debut in late July. Marshawn mentions Showtime as a possibility, which appears to be a good place to build a show around him. The Right Time could join All the Smoke and Morning Combat in premium cable channel podcast lineup. That's where his future is. I think Bomani Jones' future is in podcasting. I think you give him a podcast, have him put his input, because maybe his creativity was stymied at ESPN and he felt like he needed to get out of that, and that's why he won't renew his contract, even though I don't think they're presenting him one right now. If they need him, they will. But they're not in a rush to sign him. Look at what they've done with Bomani Jones over the last couple of years. Highly questionable. When he did highly questionable, but I do think his future is in podcasting. I think that's where his future lies. Let's see. Skim through some of this. Marchand mentions Showtime as a possibility, which appears to be a good place to build a show around him. The right time could join All the Smoke and Morning Combat in the premium cables channel's podcast lineup. I think podcasting is his future. I really do. Providing a wider range show to go with the sports-specific programs on the roster and on the regular network. Jones could possibly develop a show around commentary and documentary as seen with the weekly programs Desus and Mero and The Circus, and the mini documentaries, sports and otherwise, Showtime currently produces. Considering his past relationships with Dan Le Batard and John Skipper, Meadowlark Media could be a logical choice. And Jones was mentioned as someone the new media company would pursue when it launched. He could move the right time over there and appear across the Le Batard and Friends network. Spotify, either on his own or with the Ringer, could be a fit. The Le Batard and Friends network is nothing but a bunch of cast-offs from ESPN. I mean, have y'all seen some of their videos they posted on YouTube? Some of the shows it's a bunch of cast-offs. As far as the Ringer, I don't think he would mesh with Bill Simmons' platform. I don't think that'd be a good fit. Maybe Jones has already been looking ahead to his next step. Earlier this year, he told the Washington Post's Ben Strauss that he wasn't sure how personalities not named Stephen A. Smith fit at ESPN, so he apparently saw this outcome with the network, especially since ESPN has developed a showcase for Jones as it has with Torre and ESPN Daily Podcast. Yeah, from what I've seen from Torre, he's a less problematic guy than Bomani Jones. But we'll see what his next step is. Y'all know, stick in the comment section below. Like this video and share it. Also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay updated on everything Jay the Black.